Hello everyone. I am finally doing this class that I was gonna be doing. First, we're talking about the nodes of the moon in astrology, North Node and South Node. So I'm gonna get into what these points in your chart are, because that's what they are. They are points, and they're not necessarily planets, but they are points of the moon. So these things I'm gonna share with you what they represent in your birth chart and your transits, how they show up in your life, their cycles, and their meaning for each sign and combination of each sign. So, and also for houses. So, that's what this class is all about. It's gonna get quite juicy, quite awesome, and yeah, what if we get started? In the picture you can see what it looks like in a chart. It's like this little loop that is upright this way. Yes, you can see it. So I don't need to really explain it too much. What the nodes are, they are the nodes of the moon, they are the North Node and South Node. And they are calculated points of the moon, so not physical planets, but calculated points, kind of like the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC, vertex, part of fortune. These are all calculated points, and North and South Node are similarly calculated points in your chart. And they kind of change between a couple of years or so, and a full cycle takes about 18 years. And the sort of halfway point where nodes kind of get opposite each other compared to your birth, that takes 9 years at a time. So these are actually borrowed from the Vedic astrology tradition, and they're called Rahu and Ketu. And these points are almost always retrograde, so they go backwards, and that's something that's quite important to know with the nodes of the moon or Rahu and Ketu. They go backwards because, yes, they are points. So I'm not exactly sure why this is, why they go backwards, but I'm believing it has something to do with simply because it is the moon and it's kind of just going a different way. There are points. And this is also why they're sometimes called shadow points, because they are calculated aspects, so it's not like they are these planets, which Western astrology does put an emphasis on planets and also almost like priority. And as I said, in the Western astrology, the tradition has been borrowed from the Vedic astrology. So in Vedic astrology, Rahu, being the North Node, is the dragon's head, and Ketu is the dragon's tail. So that's the North Node. No, it's the South Node. Rahu, the North Node, is what needs development. It may seem like it's on a weak foundation. It's what's ahead. And like I said, because it's the dragon's head, it's kind of where you're headed, you know? It's where the dragon is going. So in that way, some people may consider this to be their future or their destiny or their purpose, whatever. But really, there's quite many ways to really read about it. Like in astrology, you can read anything. So really, this could even be your current present challenge. So it doesn't really need to be so black and white. K2 is again South Node, and it's what's on a good foundation and what's behind and what needs to be eliminated. So it's a dragon's tail. So when you really, really think about it, it's almost like it poops out everything. It's on the tail. So it's like swinging away. It may give you some speed, like that's the thing. The tail may give you some speed. It's an important part of who you are. But it might kind of keep you behind a little bit, and it might also leave you in circles that kind of hinder you as well. So I did talk about Saturn in one of my recent videos, so that's kind of one of those patterns, but then with the North Node and South Node there's even more of those. So So while Ketu, the south node, kind of gets a bad reputation sometimes, it's also for our greater good, and this is something that we can actually be really good at. We can actually be very comfortable and familiar with this, but the thing is, because it's kind of so easy, that we might need to learn to kind of how to let go of this and break out of this pattern, and this can also play into addictions and those type of stuff. So learning new paradigms is definitely more of a Rahu or North Node type of thing. So yeah, as kind of mentioned, this North Node can show us more purposeful paths, and South Node can help us break limiting patterns and conditionings. And North Node is where we're headed, South Node shows what must be left behind. Now, this, of course, it doesn't mean that you're just gonna have to leave behind absolutely everything that is like no going back and those type of things, but there can be some of those themes there as well. And while South Node is the comfort zone, the North Node is a challenge that provides the most growth in a way. And your personal nodes show a theme in your personal life. This is consistent, almost constant. It's a theme in your life, stays with you. But the transiting nodes can show a collective purpose, and transits in your chart can show a purpose in that area of your life. And of course, the nodes have to do with the eclipses, but that's a whole another thing that I'm probably gonna do a live masterclass on my YouTube about, just so you can get an idea what the eclipses are all about, because it's kind of one of my specialties these days. I just really love doing eclipse readings and all that, so yeah, more about that later, but now we're going into the nodes. So, Rahu is said to be exalted in Taurus and debilitated in Scorpio. And Ketu is said to be exalted in Scorpio and debilitated in Taurus. So these nodes are not naturally ruled by any sign, keep that in mind. And the exaltation makes the planet work its best, whereas debilitation is highly discomforting for this planet, or here for this point. So when you really think about it, Taurus makes Rahu excellent, and Scorpio makes Rahu very uncomfortable. And for me, this is my placement is actually the opposite, because my K2 is, or my south node is in Taurus, so it's debilitated, and then my Rahu is in Scorpio, so it's debilitated as well. I think that's very interesting, but it doesn't mean that you're doomed. It just means that you might need to do a lot more work in order to really find your way in this life, and especially in the areas that these points are in. So for me, it's been a lot like when I kind of read this, it makes sense that I've had such a tough time growing up and all that, because yeah, this kind of shows it very obviously. And then another thing that I wanted to mention is that in Draconic astrology, everything else is shifted so that the North Node is at 0 degrees Aries, and in the system, the self-discovery of Aries is seen as each soul's true purpose. And the houses and the aspects remain the same degrees, but the signs change to match up with the node shifting to Aries. And this has been said to be the astrological chart of your soul. Fascinating. So very fascinating to me. And like I kind of briefly touched on lunar and solar eclipses, they are conjunct these nodes. So they shade these two planetary bodies and trigger various purposeful events, and they can be even considered karmic events. They can also trigger internal events where motivation or lack of it is suddenly found and harnessed. This is why this effect of an eclipse can be up to 6 months forward. So like I said, this can be up to 6 months forward. That's kind of how the full moon new moon phase goes into like what the time frame from the new moon of the sign to the full moon of the sign is. Besides that, eclipses are conjunct the nodes, so there's a strong sense of purposefulness there, and it can indeed take up to 6 months for this to really unfold properly. So, and they can affect us up to that time. So yeah, there's just so many of these things here that can go on with the eclipses. And as I said, there's just so many things I've already said about this, and I have for you on my channel, so I'll definitely link that below. And then in human design, the lunar nodes describe one's environment, and as there is kind of two charts, there is your design, and which is your body, and your personality, which is your soul. So that's your like actual birthday. There's two different environments because of this, and the timing of these environments. So South Node is your young self environment, so it's pretty much up to the first half of your life, and the North Node is your later half, or your older adult self half of your life. And this has to also do with the Uranus cycle. So there's this Uranus opposition going on eventually, and that's when you're kind of going to find yourself shifting onto the North Node a little bit more. So this is also a fascinating point, fascinating way to look at this. And as I said, the cycles of the nodes come full circle every 18 years or so, and a nodal opposition happens between every 9 to 10 years, and transiting the birthchart houses, they show various psychological developments, and with eclipses they can show triggering events, especially when conjunct natal planets. And yes, I have kind of had personal experience with this too, like so many different experiences. I did talk about this previously, so I'll direct you on to those videos. And that's the very basics of this. And I'll of course move on to the signs and the houses as well a little bit. I'm kind of gonna go over them in the next part of this class. But if you have any questions about the more general things of the notes, just let me know. And yeah, that should be it for this one. You'll kind of get a better idea as soon as I get into the science itself. And yeah. Anyway, I will see you very soon.